Okay, good morning and welcome to the Hawaii Ethics Commission, not the Ethics Campaign Spending Commission, although we have some very honored guests here. First of all, let me welcome our two honored guests here. The Executive Director of the Hawaii Campaign Spending Commission, Christian Izumi
Nitao.
Nitao.
Thank you.
Also, she was recognized this past, was it December? I believe it was in Los Angeles by Kogo as an outstanding advocate and administrator. And with her is brand new from the Attorney General's office. She's a
General Counsel.
General Counsel from AG, Christy Chang. Well, welcome. Okay. And with that, there's a couple of administrative announcements. If you turn off your cell phone, and if you are going to want to be recognized, especially if you're on WebEx, please raise your hand. Okay. And with that, why don't we have a roll call? See what we get a quorum.
Recognizing that we have Commission Chair, Commissioner Thielen, Commissioner Becker, and Commissioner Hong in our hearing room. Commissioner Tobias, are you present? And is there anyone else with you?
I am present and no one is here.
Thank you. Recognizing my name is Robert Herrick, Director. I'm present in the conference room. Joining remotely is Compliance Director Chang, Staff Attorneys Neufer, Yamanuha, and Yi. And we're also joined by Jared Elster and Barbara Gash, our investigator and analyst, respectively.
Okay, thank you. Because we have members of the public with us today, I have to read this. Pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute Section 92-3-.7, the State Ethics Commission will meet remotely using interactive conference technology. The public may either attend the meeting in person at the public meeting location above, or participate remotely by using the above Zoom meeting information. If participating remotely, please mute your phone device except while testifying. If the commission's video conference connection is lost during the meeting, please visit the commission's website. That's www.ethics.hawaii.gov. For more information, including reconnection information, public meeting materials for this meeting are available on the Commission's website. And again, www.ethics.hawaii.gov. Okay, with that.
Chair, do you want to ask if any members of the public want to introduce themselves?
Oh, okay. Is there, I don't miss.
Are
Is
there
there anyone in the public like to introduce him or herself? I can't even see that far. No? Okay, we'll move on. Okay, the first thing on order of business is a consideration or approval of minutes of May 21st. Are there any corrections by any of the commissioners? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of May 21st, 2025.
So move.
Is there a second?
I second.
By Commissioner. Seconded by, well, first moved by Commissioner Thielen, seconded by Commissioner Tobias. Roll call.
Starting with Commissioner Tobias,
Aye.
Commissioner Hong,
Aye.
Commissioner Thielen,
Aye.
Commissioner Becker,
Aye.
Chair.
Chair votes aye, no objections, motion is carried. Item number 2, discussion of legislative approaches to prohibit campaign contributions from state or county contractors, grantees, officers, and immediate family members. Although it's a mouthful, it really encompasses a lot. And I want to thank again our special guests from this campaign spending committee. Robert, do you want to tell us a little something what this is all about?
My pleasure. And again, I'd also like to thank Kristen and Christy for joining us. We have had vigorous discussions here, led primarily by Commissioner Thielen on how we can support efforts to prohibit campaign contributions from contractors and contractors' family members, et cetera. Yeah, I say we as a state, generally speaking, and how the Ethics Commission can support that effort. So I think the idea was to invite you to speak generally about the efforts and to see if there's opportunities to collaborate. And then I think there may be some specific questions as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having us. And we've always appreciated our relationship with state ethics. And of course, your executive director has been very collaborative, very communicative, because we do have some shared issues. And, you know, he's very knowledgeable and has some great experience, particularly even in campaign finance, that he can really allow us to sort of talk a little bit more about the bill and just campaign finance issues. Christy is our newest general counsel. She just started a week ago. She's from the Attorney General's office. What's great is she comes from the Tax and Charities division. So this is really helpful to us, particularly as she gets more immersed in campaign finance law. But essentially the genesis of this bill is that an effort to expand pay to play to government contractors. So you start with the premise of contractors that are receiving money from the state and or counties, and of course there's a lot of money from the state and counties. And there is a current government contractor ban. So this was an attempt to expand it to their immediate family members and officers. We did initially start off with employees, but that was a little too broad. So we understood that and we came back with modifying it. But we think that there's a basis to apply this to the counties, which is the new area, state and county government contractors. And then we expanded it further to the immediate family members, the officers and the immediate family members. This is a lot, again, a lot of this has to do with some of the litigation that you've seen out there, particularly some of the Dennis Mitsunaga cases. And, you know, we can say that had this law been in place, we wouldn't have seen that this officers and their immediate family members giving to candidates. Our prior general counsel, as you Cam, thought, well, if we're dealing with, you know, government funds, why don't we expand it to grants and aid? So it's the same type of concept. So that's where we went to grants and aid. So our bill was very expansive. As you can see, the latest draft that was in conference was House Bill 371, House Draft 1, Senate Draft 1. And if you look at that bill, you can see our bill became a little bit more newer concepts emerged, including having a password protected section. So let me back up. It acknowledged that we're going to have the contracting vendors would have to give the contracting entity the names of their immediate family members, and the contracting entity would give it to us. So these would be government, county, people who are procuring the contracts would give us those immediate family members' names, and we put it in a protected password place on her website for the candidates and committees to be able to access, so they know they have some type of notice as to who immediate family members are, so they wouldn't accept the money during the government contracting period. In any event, there's a lot of dialogue in it. There was a lot of support in it. It was pretty much fast and furious during the conference committee session. And unfortunately, it did not pass, but I believe it will be the commission's intent to bringing it back, of course, revisiting some of the problem areas and perhaps probably starting from this latest draft, House Draft 1, Senate Draft 1, using that as our launching pad because that is what seems to be what the legislature was comfortable with. But we certainly welcome any support, welcome any dialogue. We can only make this tighter, make it better, make it more, you know, I think a lot of the concern was, do people understand this? Will they understand what's prohibited? Because I think everybody seemed to understand the purpose behind it. I know ethics, this commission has some other policy concerns on that, which we welcome to hear. And of course, we welcome if you would like to submit, you know, a bill on the ethics side as far as your laws, how it could interface, because as Robert, as you know, this last session, we do have a bill for which we have shared jurisdiction, and that is the prohibited contributions by lobbyists during a specified period. So that is an example of something that is already on the books that was approved, that collaborative effort, which turned out to be very positive. So we appreciate being here today, and we appreciate that you seem to understand very well the policy or the problem or the area that we're trying to shape in the future.
Before I ask the commissioners any questions or any comments, let me make sure I understand. When we talk about campaign spending throughout the state, you're it. Whereas we talk about ethics for the state, we're it, but the counties have their own.
Correct.
So anything dealing with campaign spending, it's your baby. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. We also cover the counties too, so yeah.
Oh, well,
Except we just don't do the federal congressional,
right.
yes.
Well, good luck. Anyway, with that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You're looking at a bill that made it to conference committee, and then as the media reported, the Senate president and the Speaker of the House walked in to the conference committee where they were going to be able to work out a final version, and they killed the bill. Do you have any input as to what went on that?
No,
That's first.
I was not, we're not part of that process, so the only part that I was involved with were questions coming from the legislators. And they were very, fast and furious and varied, but at the essence of it is they seem to appreciate the spirit of it. So,
But you don't know why leadership at the last minute killed it,
I have
what was going on.
It was troublesome because I felt that we had made such, I carved a lot of road with this last draft, and I thought we were on, it was very exciting because if this were to pass, this is probably groundbreaking as far as campaign finance, as far as it
Well,
goes.
certainly, because the head of a corporation just hands off the money to a spouse, and then the spouse donates, and that overrides the intent of the law.
You've seen it happen.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Of course. Later on in another agenda item, I think it's item number 5. We're going to talk about another way to crack down on the pay to play arena. And that is looking more at saying government employees in the executive branch must be ethical. And that's, I hope you'll stay here while we discuss that and maybe weigh in on what you feel works and what wouldn't work. And it's not the entire thing. It's not dealing with the actual money that it needs to be reported. It's saying before you even go there, if you're going to be in this high ranking position and you're going to have this authority to award, say, new interstate highways or interstate new highways or etc., you're not going to be able to participate in the political donation area. In other words, that's a right that you would give up knowingly before you accept that job.
Mm,
So, that certainly doesn't cover this whole ball game of what you've been trying to do, which is the donation that just gets passed from person to person within the big corporation, and then someone else hands it in.
right.
But, it says to government employees, it's one way of, I look at it as each step we take can maybe bring about a more ethical government, because we know right now it's anything but.
I, on that note, I will say a conversation emerged, when this was in conference, and that had to do with, again, the spirit of it is there, but I don't think, based on your, when you look at the latest drafts, you can see that our original draft was not how they, what made it to conference. And the essence of it is getting chipped away at, right? Making it, but again, the spirit is there. So another, not only the password protected area, notifying who the family members are, which makes sense, because that's just notice. Another one had to do with, the kinds of contracts we're talking about, and that would be over 250,000, because state procurement was concerned that this would be just too burdensome. So that was one area. Now, to your point, yes, I'd be very interested in the dialogue, and certainly Robert and I can continue the conversation. An emerging issue that came up while this was in conferences, would they limit this to the branches of government that would sign the contract? So I should share with you, for instance, if you were an executive branch candidate or elected official, and that would be the governor, lieutenant governor, and OHA, you would be prohibited from receiving a contribution from a government contractor and their immediate family members, for who would contract with, who have an executive branch contract. They could take government contractor and their immediate family members and their officers money contributions from legislative or judicial branch contracts. So the problem here is that we're talking about legislators who would therefore be able to take, it would be permissible for them to take government contractor and their officers and immediate family members' contributions from executive branch contracts. And we all know the largest money is coming from executive branch contracts, whether it's construction, real estate, Ron knows. So that was a concern, but you know, if that had been the deal breaker, I think we had noted our concerns, but again, it might have to be coming in phases, you know, this whole ban, but it would concern the commission if that would be a limiting factor, because it doesn't really, it's a start. It's just not the best start.
No, but it looks at ethics, and in my mind, it just should have been an immediate no-no for a high-ranking government official that's responsible for awarding contracts to be pulling this brown bag thing together.
For sure.
But yet there's nothing in the law at present, and that's why that's just one, I don't know, it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, but it's one piece of the puzzle that we put together, and then hopefully the major portions are what you're going to be trying to accomplish, and those will put a lot more pieces in, but this one little key piece, I think, could prevent a lot of that from happening.
It would, I guess I would also say, if I'm hearing it right, in applying it, it actually dovetails with what the latest thought would be, which again, for the commission, our position is it greatly waters down the pay to play in the legislative branch. But if you were to have an ethical component that's attached because to legislators for legislative branch contracts, I think they'd be able to comply with that if this branch of government were to be in place. Again, we would have concerns about, so we'd rather not have this limited based on branches of government. So if you were able to construct something larger than just within the branches, I think we'd have a better place of surviving further dialogue and not limiting this. Executive branch is prohibited from executive branch contracts, legislative is prohibited from legislative contracts.
Sometimes, from my experience there for 30 years, sometimes you have to do your toe in the water.
Absolutely, I
And,
understand that.
well, this is really kind of, it's not Manini, but it's a small beginning to define ethical behavior while you have the choice and know before you're going to accept that position, do I want to do that? And it's a small beginning, but I think without that, we're not going to teach our ethics more broadly, and we need to do that. We need someone coming into government to be a high-ranking appointed official needs to have a very good sense of what ethics require of that person. Yeah, so I see us as being compatible. Yours is much more far reaching. What I'm proposing for our ethics committee is the first toe in the water. Yeah,
I
or
wonder if
maybe
there-
there's a better way to put it to tie in with the brown bag. Putting the first puka in
Let's
the
see.
bottom of the bag.
let's see if we have any
The
other.
money falls out before they go to the event.
Cynthia, let's see if any other commissioners have any questions or comments that we can address to capping spending. Bev, any questions or comments?
Yeah, just asking if it just applies, you talked about the executives and people who are in higher position. Does it apply to any of the lower ranking legislative folks? You know, so that it's like across the board and we would be able to say, no, you can't do that at any level. You can't recommend, or you can't say, let this one go kind of thing. I don't know if I'm explaining it really well, but I think is it for the entire legislation or legislators? And is it also for just the executive branches?
Mr. Tobias, do you mind just clarifying? Are you talking about the bill that the Campaign Spending Commission has been trying to get
Yes.
passed the past several years?
Yes.
Yeah, so our jurisdiction's only over candidates and non-candidate committees. So we're talking about people who are running for state or county office. So it doesn't go to any other lower ranking. So it's either you're a candidate who's won an election, so you're an elected official, or you're a candidate who did not win, but you still remain registered with us. And those people could work for the legislators who are elected. Those are the kinds of people that we have jurisdiction over, but I think this is gonna be, I can see where you're coming from. You have, in that sense, broader,
Yeah.
jurisdiction, because it's all state employees. It's really only our people who run for office, whether you win or lose, as long as you stay open with us. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I
You
think
did,
so.
yeah.
Robert, any?
You might ask if members of the public or staff.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to ask the commissioners first. Commissioners, any other questions? Let me ask you one. What was a pushback in regards to your legislation? Why did they say no way, Jose? Or did they say that?
Ultimately, they said that.
What's their objection?
Well, it is very expansive, it does prohibit, so the way I see it is it's really, we're only talking about a very specific period of time. Is when you get the contract to when it ends.
Mhm.
So it's only this, so I don't believe it's going to jeopardize any type of, First Amendment right to,
I agree.
because you can give,
Yeah.
outside those windows. And there are other laws out there, other states that make that window. If you're gonna put in a bid to procure it, that's when it starts.
Oh.
And we're not doing that. We're just saying if you're awarded it, we're trying to limit it to if you get the award, then these concerns are gonna exist. And we know from the Attorney General's office, when you get a state contract, there are 20 pages of terms and conditions, of which one of them says if you're a government contractor, you're prohibited from making contributions during the life of the contract. And I want to be clear, we don't have every single contract. This law only has certain types of contracts, and they tend to be the bigger dollar, but I can't explain it.
Well, it just seems like, why should there be any problem with it? It's not quote unquote, as we say in the legal terms, vague and ambiguous, it can go, but anyway, good luck. Now, from the public, anybody have any questions or comments? Hello? I guess not. Let me ask you, aside from what you just presented, and you got our support, of course, you understand. This is more of a mundane or broad question. If we have an issue, this is coming from me, an issue that really touches campaign spending and ethics, how should we resolve that in regards to taking the lead? And probably the reason why I asked that question is to me, who's got the bigger hammer? Because, we just increased our fines from 1,000 per violation to 5,000. I don't know, what is your cap in regards to, punishment, or what you may call it?
We do have a catch-all, and our catch-all is, I think, it could be 1,000 per occurrence for, pretty much everybody. The only one where it jumps to 5,000 is for super PACs. Non-county committees that don't have, that can raise unlimited money and spend unlimited money, but you have to declare that on your registration form. So these people, they can support candidates, but it can't be coordinated. So and there's only about registered with us, just about maybe about 20, not a lot, but we do watch them. I think everybody knows we had dealt with gosh, I'm blanking on their name, about 10 years ago. It'll come to me. But what I want, a Pacific Resource Partnership, PRP.
Okay.
But in light of, this is all stemming from Citizens United, right? Which is fairly in about 15 years ago, roughly, is when it came out, where it said, if you're a PAC or a non-county committee in our world, if you raise, you can become a committee that they didn't feel there isn't any corruption for raising as much money as you want and spending as much money as you want, as long as you're not coordinating it with the candidate. So that we were sued for that, and we have a permanent injunction so therefore, if you register with us as a super PAC, you don't have a $1,000 contribution limit per election. So we do regulate that, but they have a higher fine of the catch-all fine of 5,000, and in some parts of our statute, more like 10,000. But that is a very finite group of people. As far as our world, it's at least 700 committees, of which the majority are candidates. Either they're active or they're all registered, but some are more active than others because, of course, they're running for office. And there's just some that are held in abeyance because they're thinking about running for office in the future. But we have to regulate all of them. And I'll just tell you, at July 31st, we have a report coming up where all 700 plus committees have to file it. Whether you are elected or not, or active or not, as long as you're registered with us, you'll have to file that report. And if you don't, we do fine.
So in general, actually, we may have or you say more club, we got a 5,000 per violation. So I was just thinking, with a lot of times being here, how many years now, there is an overlap. You know, campaign spending, ethics, which is a violation. There may be both.
Could
But I'm
well,
sure we can,
absolutely.
yeah, so I'm sure we can work it out. Any other questions from the commissioners? Any questions from the public? I'll give you one more chance. Okay, if not, you have any last words of wisdom that you want
No, we'll go into that under section 5.
to? Okay.
Yeah, so they'll,
We'll wait.
definitely I have more.
Yeah. Actually, again, thank you, Christian. Thank you, Christy, for coming. We really appreciate the enlightenment, at least, and come back anytime. And I'm glad that we can work together for the common good at this time.
And first, Commissioner Thielen, perhaps I'll let you guys have your meeting, and I can certainly work well with Robert in dialoguing about that one item that you have.
Certainly.
You know, we can always.
I have some proposed language that, under 5, section 5, I'm going to propose it to the commissioner.
Great, and that way we can be supporting testimony as well. Well, we certainly can stay in communication with our bills, and it would be good if we could present it as sort of a approach both ways, and then in a positive way forward. And again, at the end of the day, we really want people to understand what we're doing. And so, and then of course, the people who are voting on it, what we're doing, because those are the people that are going to be regulated. So the stakeholders. So I think that can only help.
Very
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Again, Christy, congratulations.
Thank you.
And you, Marina. Christian, thank you for coming, and you are welcome to stay
Thank you.
for an exciting morning, but you may leave, you know. We'll take a 1-minute recess if there are objections. Off the record. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Have you met, you met all of our commissioners? All right, let's see, I think we're on number 3, director's report.
Chair, just for the record, do you mind saying it's 9:39?
Oh, thank you very much. 9:39, and we're resuming our meeting.
Thank you. Was it?
And with that, item number 3, our director's report.
Okay, if it's possible, if I can turn over the first section to Benita, and I will cover Key's portion.
Good morning, Commissioners. The main update that I want to share with the Commission is we have already issued reminders to all the new public board members starting July 1 to remind them to take training. Anyone who's a member of the 17 public boards are required to take the live training session. So there are a few new appointees. There's also a new legislator that was recently appointed. So we reached out to them and reminded them of the requirements. So we will anticipate scheduling those individuals in the upcoming sessions that we have. In terms of disclosures, our office continues to be busy with filing season. We finished the May filing group, and we're handling the new board filers, who are due end of July, since they start their terms July 1. So our office has been busy assisting filers and getting their disclosures in. So that's primarily the update.
Any questions from the commissioners? From the public? We still have anybody from the public?
We had at least one reporter on, so I believe there's someone.
Tell her to move on.
There's 2 members of the public.
Okay, next.
So just shifting briefly to the statistics report. So this is page, starting on page 19, you have the webinar training statistics. Page 20, just briefly looking at the number of assignments that have come in. We had 31 complaints, 11 anti-fraud, and 32 requests regarding travel, invitations, gifts. So total of 85 projects opened up in May. And then we've closed out 76, 20 complaints. So we've got a little bit of catch up there to do, and 5 anti-fraud. A new report that we're providing, which is attachment 3 on page 21. We are showing you the top 20 highest paid lobbyists based on the reporting that came in as of June 11th, 2025. This may get amended over time if somebody refiles or does an amendment, but as of currently, this is our top 20. On page 22, we have something that is new that we've never been able to do before, where we've actually, because of a change in the law, now lobbyists have to report on what bills specifically they've been lobbying on. And so now we're able to track the bills that have had the highest number of lobbyists involvement. Perhaps no surprise. Number 1 is the state budget, HB 300. But again, I'll let you make conclusions. And again, our job as the Ethics Commission, at least in this regard, is to be a repository of public information and to make this available to the public. And so, this is part of our good faith efforts to make sure this information is available. Anyone who is interested in finding out more can go to the public data tab on our website, and they can actually download, they can review it or download all of the raw information and make any types of conclusions that they want to do. And we'll talk about that briefly in the media section. Finally, on page 23, we have the top 20 state lobbying organizations by reported expenditures, just showing who's reported the most expenditure on lobbying throughout the year. Starting number 1, Hawai'i Electric, and going all the way down to the bottom list of AARP. Okay. And then just briefly, shifting gears on miscellaneous projects. Do want to just make sure that the commission is aware that we do have 1 commissioner whose term's expiring this month. I contacted Judicial Council to ask about the status of picking a new candidate, have not yet heard back. So I believe until such time, Beverly will continue as a holdover member, but obviously we, it's in everyone's interest to try to get that resolved. So thank you, Beverly, for continuing to hold
You're welcome.
And, again, hope to hear more from Judicial Council soon.
Do you think I think you can approach the CJ and ask them what's going on? We'd sure like to get her, if we can maybe see Bev again, but at the same time, knowing that we need to fill a vacancy.
I can do that.
And then Bev, stick around.
Okay,
Leave the chickens in for, but yes.
okay.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead. You're gonna ask the same question you're gonna,
I
here?
thought, and maybe I'm incorrect, but I thought, if you go to page 21, compensation for the top 20 lobbyists. Take, for example, the third most money went to Blake O'Shiro, 205,000, 205,610 and 9 cents. I thought that some of them then in turn donated that money to candidates. In other words, the corporations that wanted lobbying done on their behalf would give these lobbyists a lump sum with the instruction of donate to the candidates that are favorable, or to make those, the legislators that are favorable, or make sure they stay favorable by donating to them. Am I right?
If a lobbying organization, like a corporation, is lobbying on something, specifically designates money to be spent on a campaign contribution or specifically given to a candidate, or that would be separately reported with us. We would have at least the record that that's been given for that purpose. I think in most circumstances, just generally speaking, the corporation or the lobbying organization makes the contributions directly and doesn't do it through the lobbyist necessarily. Although that does
I
happen
recall on the name of some of the people there, I recall one of them saying they had a lump sum of maybe back then it was 30,000 to be able to distribute. So that,
If that
I
money
maybe
is,
should have
yeah.
asked this when,
So if that money is going through the lobbyist and is coming from the client, then that's something that we would ask them to be reporting, because that would show up on our side of the fence. If it's a contribution made directly from the lobbying organization to the candidate, then that's on the campaign spending commissions, and we don't see that. And sometimes lobbyists.
And at times that a donation was given in the lobbyist's name with an oral statement that this is from. I don't know. I'm always voted against tobacco, so I never got those amounts, but that money flowed in through a lobbyist and without it having, say, the earmark of the tobacco company.
If
So
I,
how does that, that's not unethical, but it's, how does it get reported?
Go ahead, Benita.
if I can also add to Robert's comments, there's also the
Can you speak up a bit? I had procedure on my ear and it's a bit muffled and you're really garbled.
I'm turning up the sound.
apologies, Commissioner.
It's
Can
a
you hear?
high tech.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Just to add to Robert's comments, there's also a recent law that bans lobbyists from contributing donations during 5 days before session begins and 5 days after, I believe it is. So during session, they're not allowed to donate specifically. It's part of that recent kind of slew of bills that we were able to pass. So that at least during session tamps down
So
those
I'm
direct
kind of
donations.
missing that, but I now that I'm thinking of it, it probably helped elected officials not having a tobacco company on their campaign spending report, because they would be reporting it as a donation from the lobbyist. So with the verbal statement from the lobbyist, this is from Big Tobacco. See what I'm saying? So that
Again, just to clarify, if the tobacco company gave $30,000 to a lobbyist and the lobbyist gives that, that would be reported. However, if the lobbyist is paid a lot of money and then gives it out of their own pocket, then that would be just from the lobbyist. So it's hard for us to necessarily break that apart. So if a lobbyist gets paid $10,000 a month in retainer, and then makes personal contributions, that's personal, and we wouldn't necessarily be able to track that.
Yeah.
However, it is a known fact that that lobbyist represents that corporation and people can still draw those connections, right?
Yeah.
If the money is given for the purpose of a campaign contribution, that would have to be reported as given for a campaign contribution. So then the dots are even clearer, right? So that hasn't really changed necessarily. And what Benita is referencing is during the session, no campaign contributions can be made.
Right, well, yeah, well, it still stays under the radar if they wanted to.
You know what's interesting, if I
Yeah,
really move on, it's
Yeah.
interesting the names which appear on this list of 21. There's even a former AG in there. Yeah. But there's, of course, isn't there still a 1 year cooling off period? Yeah, so, well, what can I say? Interesting.
I don't know how.
So these are payments that just pertain to lobbying state entities. That
Correct.
So Ross, after you retire.
and then is there overlap between 21 and 23 where some of these entities might be paying these lobbyists as well? Or
Correct. So we're showing you what the lobbyists are reporting they receive, and then we're reporting the gross expenditures by the lobbying organization. So there may be correlation between that if they've hired one of those lobbyists, for example.
and then would you be able to like break up what is this work for for, but payments are for what? Because it's interesting to see a list, but what are they working on?
That's a great question. And so I'm gonna answer a little bit broadly, just so members of the public listening to it would be aware as well. We do have a tremendously good reporting system online. So you can look up any of these things, like, say, for example, I'm just gonna say this is the #1 organization, Hawaiian Electric. If you clicked on it, you should then also be able to see the different individual itemizations of what was spent. Our categories are still pretty broad. So, you may see most of the categorization of Hawaiian Electric as just paying a lobbyist, and there won't be as much connection. You should be able to see which lobbyists were hired, and you'd sort of have those categorizations. So yes, you can get more itemized. This was intended to be more of a snapshot or a big picture overview. But if anyone's interested in specific bills, or specific lobbyists or specific lobbying organization, you have the capacity on our website to actually dig deeper into that.
This is making me a little bit concerned, Chair. Big Tobacco isn't showing up on the lobbying organization. And yet we know that they're a major player. If there's live tobacco legislation during a session.
So
So
what's the
what do you
question?
think is going on that?
I don't think we can answer that, can we? I mean, why is the tobacco company not listed?
Again, what we're showing you is a snapshot of what was reported to us. If there are concerns about actions, we also proactively look at all of the testimonies. But yeah, no,
Altira?
he notes, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I take it back. I apologize. Altira is in here for, what doesn't have an amount?
199,000.
What's?
Oh, yeah, maybe it does, 88,000.
Wait a minute.
So there's their 88,000. Yep,
Oh, Altria. Yeah, that's a good start.
Altira or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that's tobaccos.
Yeah, yeah, so 88,000, and then we don't know whether or not, that requires a little bit of investigative reporting. Where did that go?
Okay.
And does it show up in the legislators' reports?
Well, when we put that into a
That's not.
caveat, yeah, okay. Can we move on?
Okay,
All right,
yes.
is that for your direction?
That's it, unless there's any questions.
Item number 4, discussion media reports.
Just as a reminder, this is a standing topic item to give the commission the opportunity to talk about any media reports that have occurred since our last meeting involving ethics or the Hawaii State Ethics Commission generally. I will note 4 articles that my search has caught. There is an article today on the Civil Beat regarding the Public Utilities Commission and a anonymous complaint about it, which also references an individual that had some ethics complaints filed against him, or findings by the Ethics Commission against him. An article I'd like to note just a little bit. Yesterday, there was a article flagged in the Civil Beat, or a report flagged in the Civil Beat by UHERO, the University of Hawaii Economics Research, I believe, and I'm blanking the last organization, perhaps the acronym. They did an analysis of our lobbying data, and I quote, "It's one of the country's most detailed state lobbying data sets, and they were really happy with the changes we recently made, requiring lobbyists to indicate which bills they're testifying on." And so they did a pretty detailed breakout, and then actually broke out lobbying organizations and lobbyists by sector. And we're trying to actually do an analysis of who testified the most, which sector was the most influential, where the more support or opposition. It's a pretty interesting report that, again, the Civil Beat yesterday referenced. And I think we may actually try to send that report to the legislature. Again, maybe sort of a recognition of our recommendation to make this bill pass, but also the fact that they passed that bill and the fact that now we are probably one of the more transparent states with regards to lobbying. Other reports, we have a article on June 14th with regards to a Oregon ethics commissioner that made several trips to Hawaii, and they were investigating it. Just the reference of Hawaiian ethics popped up. And then on June 22nd, there's a article about a Hawaii senator that did not disclose a potential conflict of interest. Those are media reports.
Actually, one more thing, I mean, we did get a thank you from the Maui Commission and thanking us for our support of now a full-time staff on the Maui Ethics Commission, which it didn't have. That was Mike Dooley. Remember who he was. So again, congratulations. Any questions, commissioners?
No.
Okay, moving right along, legislative matters.
Apologies, I'm getting to that section. So this will probably be the last time we have a specific agenda item on 2025 legislative matters. With regards to the bills that we introduced 4 bills, and all 4 bills have now been passed and made into law, which is a pretty impressive batting record with the legislature to have 100% of bills. And we have to be appreciative of both the quality of the bills and concepts that the commission presented and the research behind them, as well as the House and Senate's willingness to pass our bills. So I think it's a cooperative effort. I'll skip over the budget. I mean, it is what it is. Senate Bill 289 allows us essentially to issue parking tickets going forward. So anything under $1,000, we can simply issue an order, where the facts or the law are not really ambiguous. We just go ahead and issue the fine, and the individual who has the fine assessed against them can either just pay it and it's done, or they can contest it and come before us and basically present their side of the story. But just the idea is allows us to expedite enforcement a lot quicker. We did a number of changes with regards to lobbying again, which probably the most important one is allowing vendors, contractors who are sort of talking to high-level executive members, if they cross the threshold of the number of hours and the amount of money spent just relatively low, they now need to report as lobbyists. So we essentially have what we call procurement lobbying now in the state of Hawaii, which would require them to report and to make that information transparent. In addition, the rules or prohibitions on lobbyists would also apply to them now as well. So they'd have to go through our ethics training. They'd be prohibited from giving gifts and some other items. So it is a pretty significant step. It does not go into effect for 2 years, which gives us a time to pass rules, to do a lot of reach out on education with both the procurement office, but all existing contractors, and try to make sure that when this law goes into effect, it's pretty smooth. And I am available for any questions with regards to 2025 legislative matters.
Nepotism.
As we discussed last time, that was a bill proposed in the Senate. It passed the Senate. It passed one committee in the House, but did not pass the judiciary. The judiciary chair essentially indicated that it was his belief that they've passed rules on nepotism, and the House and Senate both have their own nepotism rules, and they'll enforce them themselves. And they don't want necessarily to lose their own jurisdiction over themselves.
Are we beating a dead horse?
I'm
putting it
that's your
figuratively.
I'm assuming it is an issue, and I think it's entirely in the commission's discretion to keep bringing it up. I suspect it's not going to pass at the legislature until there's a change of
leadership.
Potentially, but again, I think sort of from a do we have 90% of the loaf, I think we do have 90% of the low because the majority of state employees are subject to our nepotism rules. And the House and Senate have both adopted pretty strict nepotism rules as well. I think where we really should squeak is if we see a case of nepotism that is not enforced at the legislature, then that's entirely fair game. But for
Remember,
now,
I asked you the question the last session. If we see a legislator violating the nepotism law, do we have jurisdiction over him? And you said basically no, because that's an exception.
the nepotism law only does not apply to the legislative branch or the judiciary branch.
Right. So,
However, they do have their own rules that would prohibit it, that they
We
be
can-
referred to.
it can be the, what? A whistleblower?
Correct.
All right, they're getting raised. And the only reason I asked that question, because my neighborhood board was under check. Our senators have pushed this, because they are in favor of nepotism on this law.
Prohibiting that.
Prohibiting the nepotism. And I emphasized it, and I asked our representatives who are neighborhood board, and they said, yeah. Then all of a sudden I found out it died in committee. So let's try it again. Try it again. Who knows, right? All right, any questions?
The measure that I want to bring up is under section 6, not
Okay.
5. Just wanted to
Okay,
let you
when are
know
we,
that.
anything else more in section 5? Let's go to section 6, legislative proposals and commission's jurisdiction.
So this is a new standing item that Commissioner Phelan asked that we include to give the commission the opportunity essentially to brainstorm new legislative ideas. I did talk to OIP about this, and they basically indicated, and I'm paraphrasing their comments, like a brainstorming session where members of the public or commissioners want to talk about this potential legislative ideas is great. I think if it comes to the point of us wanting to specifically adopt proposed bill language, I think the suggestion would be is actually making sure that's introduced as an attachment with giving the public notice that we're going to be taking action on something.
Okay,
So it is discussion, great. Specific action, we may want to actually have the draft and let the public see it before we take action.
I've got one.
Okay, so
Chair? can
Yeah,
I
go ahead,
begin?
yeah.
Okay, this is the brown bag ethical issue again. And what I'm suggesting to commissioners is that we propose a bill for the legislative session in 2026 that's very, very short and basically gets right at a very small section of the people that will be in government employee in the legislative branch that should know at the beginning they need to be ethical. And it would state no unelected, which leaves out the gov, lieutenant gov, any elected person, no unelected officer or employee of the executive branch of the state who has oversight, management, or procurement authority over state contracts with a value greater than $5,000 shall, 1, organize, attend, host, or solicit contributions for any political fundraiser for any candidate for elective office or directly solicit campaign contributions from any individual or entity. And then I have a proposed exemption that would say, except, and this is based on Ohio and Kentucky, except to exercise the individual's right as a citizen to express opinions and cast votes. So it keeps the First Amendment rights of that newly appointed executive branch employee. And then it says, for purposes of this section, procurement authority includes authority to select vendors, award contracts, approve payments, or otherwise influence the outcome of the state procurement process. So it means that you're being considered to become a cabinet head of Department of Transportation. And among your job responsibilities and limitations and requirements, there'll be this ethical requirement. Stay out of the fundraising.
You know, I think it's very commendable in regards to what you proposed. Let me do this. If any questions by the commissioners, that's just questions now, that's all. And if it's okay with you, if the commission would like, take what you have proposed, we'll give it to the staff to set, I use the word sanitize, or maybe make it kosher, how's that? Okay, and then they can come back to us with the whatever language, is that okay? Is that okay?
Pardon, next month.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, is that okay?
Sure.
So right now,
absolutely.
any questions for Commissioner Thielen's proposed legislation? Beverly,
Just one quick question. It kind of sounds like it more belongs to campaign finance than to ethics, or am I misinterpreting that?
That, that's a good point to bring up, and that's why it's only covering the ethical behavior. That it's unethical if you get yourself, if you're an appointed executive official and are monitoring or having any action on any state contracts, this is in the executive branch only, having any involvement with any state contracts, 5,000 or more, then you can't participate in fundraising activities. So it doesn't go into what's the amount you can give. It doesn't go into the campaign spending portion at all. It just stops at saying, this is not ethical behavior. Stop. You don't even go to money.
Okay.
any other questions? I don't want a discussion on this, just any more questions and then, or concerns, I could say. And if not, I'm gonna ask, you have a copy of that, or we'll give it to.
Yeah, I've got it marked up.
Any objections to the staff reviewing it and giving their input?
No, but is this only like appointed, so like cabinet members, basically cabinet members, or who else would be appointed?
It's all state employees.
Yeah.
It's an unelected officer or employee of the executive branch. So I would think it would include a cabinet official.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering how far down it went.
So, well, it goes down by the responsibility of the job, which is $5,000 or above. And being able to, it wouldn't be like ordering a bunch of pencils.
Okay. Any other
from the
questions?
School.
I think hopefully the staff have gotten all the concerns on this bill, so they can, I guess, make it kosher. Yeah, thank you. Is that okay?
No problem. Happy to do that. I've been in discussion with Commissioner Thielen. Also, we're asking the deputy AG to look at it from a
Terrific.
functionality perspective.
And I want to thank you to the,
Oh,
can you hear me?
yeah, I did. Thanks, I can hear.
All right.
Criticism, I can't.
Okay, if there's something else on that, let's move on. Oh, nothing. Item number, give me some good news. Item number 7.
We don't have to talk about this. No update.
How long has it been now?
Pretty close to 8 years.
Wow.
Since the Supreme Court made its
No,
since it went up to the Supreme Court.
Since it, yeah, it's been about a year and a half.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else that we have on the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Hong, seconded by Commissioner Tobias. Roll call.
Noting the time for purpose of minutes, it's 10:12. Starting with Commissioner Tobias,
Aye.
Commissioner Hong,
Aye.
Commissioner Becker,
Aye.
Commissioner Thielen.
Aye.
Chair.
And chair votes aye. How much time do you want for our Perry? 10 minutes, is that enough? Is that okay? Okay. We'll
have
resume
to-
at
I have to be gone by no later than 20 minutes to 11, so I may not be able to
okay,
stay for.
we'll resume at 10:20. Okay? Motion is carried.